With free agency underway, the Brooklyn Nets have already undergone several crucial roster decisions. Could Nic Claxton be on the move next? That's what we'll be talking about today with our incredible guest, Mr. Bob Windrem of Nets Daily. Mr. Windrem, thank you so much for sparing some time for us and coming on to the show. How you doing?
Good, good, good.
Appreciate you. As always, I'm super happy you are able to be here. And like I mentioned there in the open, that's what we're going to start off with today. The talking point of Nic Claxton and where he will be really for the 2025-2026 NBA season. When it comes to Claxton, we know the reported landing spot has been the LA Lakers if a trade does ultimately go through. This is a guy who signed a 4-year, $100 million contract last season. 1 year into that deal, he hasn't really lived up to the expectations. Based on what you're hearing, is a Claxton trade possible ahead of the 2025-2026 season? And what does the framework for that look like?
Well, first of all, I have seen no indication that the Nets are interested in trading him. I've seen a lot of indications that the Lakers would like to have him, but it appears that they're going to be going after DeAndre Ayton. And there was some suggestion that the Suns might want him, but they made moves yesterday as well. And there are other indications that that essentially tell me that this may be a case where Sean Marks is taking calls and not making calls. And because at this point in the off season, he's their center, and they really they got Dayron yesterday on a bargain deal. I thought.
Yes. I thought it was going to get $12 million a year, Mr. Windrem. I don't think it was going to be 2 years, $12 million. I thought it was going to be for 20, 2 for 24.
Yeah, well, the other thing about it is that it's only guaranteed the first year. So and that's $5.8 million. And it's the same deal, obviously, that Zaire Williams got. So, I don't see, I just haven't seen any indication that the Nets are that excited about moving him. And I don't think he's that excited about moving. His wife is pregnant unless she's delivered recently. And that's the sort of thing that wants to keep you around. And I just, one of the things about the Lakers is the rumored of a Lakers deal never really appealed to me, because if you really wanted to move Claxton, you would want to get a package that included first rounders, and the Lakers don't have any until 2032. And that's one thing. And Laker picks are not that good traditionally. The Lakers have been to the playoff 65 of their 77 years of existence. That means the chances of them having a pick in the lottery are very small historically. So I think that's one thing. I think that there is pressure in LA to get a big man. Certainly after the discussion yesterday about LeBron opting in, but also saying he wants to, or also saying through intermediaries or his team or whatever you want to call it, that he's not married to the Lakers if they aren't going to push to get a championship level team. And there's also uncertainty out there about Austin Reeves and et cetera, et cetera. They're probably going to be very, very aggressive, but if they move towards the DeAndre Ayton, that means that the market for Claxton is just, I don't know where else it comes from. And again, he was hurt last year, and I have to assume that that he'll be better. And the other thing is his contract is very interesting, because his contract descends in value over the 4 years of the deal, not just in raw numbers, but also as a percentage of the cap. And in the fourth year of his deal, I believe his contract is like 11.8% of the salary cap. So he becomes more of a bargain as things move forward. Assuming he can continue to develop, and he's still only 25. And the fact that they signed him knowing they were going into a rebuild suggests to me that that he's a core piece. Again, I don't know. I have no clue as to what they're thinking. They have been locked up tighter than a drum this time around, at least in terms of specifics. In general terms, they've been pretty open, but in specifics, you're not getting much out of them.
My question to you then, Mr. Windrem, if the Nets do keep Claxton this season, where does Day'Ron Sharpe really fit on this team? What role is he going to play on the 25-26 Brooklyn Nets after signing him to an extension? How does he fit into this lineup if Claxton's the starting center?
Well, I think that he has spoken. Sharpe has spoken about expanding his game, particularly three-point shooting.
Yep.
And the Nets will preach positionless basketball, and there's 48 minutes in a game, etc. So I think you could see him playing some minutes at the 4, some minutes at the 5. There's going to be a lot of competition. I mean, you don't know where Noah Clowney is going to play. You don't know what Danny Wolf is going to do. Is Danny Wolf going to be mostly in Brooklyn, or is he going to be developing in Long Island? I mean, there's so many questions out there that we're not going to know the answer to until October. And, they also have $17 million left that they could use. And it's not a case of where they're going to stop at the salary cap. They can go over the cap in a lot of different ways.
Well, $17 million is just the floor, too. Like, they need to – I said $17 million is just the floor, too. Like, they need to get to the floor before the start of the season. Like, this team still has so much cap space left, to put that in perspective for everyone out there.
Yeah, and the other thing to note is that the 5 rookies will command a guaranteed $19.7 million. And that is not included. So there's going to be some additional numbers. But the way the CBA is set up, there are ways to get over the cap by sequencing your signings. Bird rights, you can use those. The rookie salaries are exceptions. They're usually the last signings. The first signings are when you are usually players who you've acquired or reacquired. So I think the first signings you actually see will be Day'Ron and Zaire. But I assume they're going to be making other moves as well between now and probably July 6th. So in any event, I think what's going to happen. Let me rephrase that. In any event, I think that you're still somewhere in the mostly certain but not quite certain picture in terms of where you're headed next season. I mean, and I thought that the move to get Michael Porter Jr. was a pretty good move.
Absolutely.
I mean, he's a very good player. He no longer has the health issues that troubled him early in his career. He had 3 back surgeries in his career, which
like 77 games last season. Like, he's been healthy the past 3 years in the league. The way I look at it, Mr. Windrem, is he's better at every aspect of basketball, in my opinion, than Cam Johnson. I think he's a better defender. I think he's a better scorer. I think he's a better rebound. And I think he's a better three-point shooter. This is a guy who shot the 3 ball at nearly a 40% clip last year.
No, and I think that I saw Shams talking last night about how the Nuggets want a fresh start. Well, maybe, but it's basically a salary dump in which you get a better player, which is very odd. I mean, the Nuggets get below the luxury tax threshold as a result of this deal, and they have no draft picks. They only had one draft pick going into yesterday, and that was the 2032 pick. And now they have none. They have no first round picks. So they are limited, and they wanted to get a little bit more flexibility in the cap, which they did. And he also just turned he just turned 27, like I think it was yesterday. So he's still young. And I think that the other thing about his contract is he'll be expiring next year. And even though he's going to be paid $40.8 million next year, a lot of teams are going to have cap space next year, and a lot of teams are going to be looking for somebody like him. So I think his contract is movable. It's reasonable, and I think that over the course of this year, it may get better in value because he is going to be one of the one of the two or three go-to guys on the Nets in terms of scoring. And as you note, he is a better scorer than Cam Johnson. He's also younger than Cam, and he also has a ring. Cam Johnson got to the finals, but in 2023, the Denver Nuggets won it all, and he was critical. So,
yeah, absolutely. My next question for you here is the Nets exercised 4 team options just a few days ago. Tyrese Martin, Jalen Wilson, Keon Johnson, and Drew Timme were those 4 players. They're non-guaranteed salaries, these team option deals. That said, even especially a guy like Drew Timme, who played a few games in Brooklyn last year, never really got in a groove. He wasn't a 40, 50 game guy in Brooklyn, spent the majority of the season on Long Island. Is there any chance you could see one of these guys not making the opening day roster for Brooklyn? Even a guy like Jalen Wilson, who I understand led the Nets in minutes last season, but the Nets now have a ton of small forwards that they added this offseason. They re-signed Zaire Williams. Anyone out of those 4 that you could see on the outside looking in come game 1 of the season?
I can see more than one. It depends on what they need. Essentially, Danny Wolf is Drew Timme on steroids. I think that's the one. That's the issue.
He's also 7 foot.
Huh?
He's also 7 foot too, which also adds another element.
Right. Although Timme is probably 6'10", but that's I don't know what the comparison is in wingspan. But yeah, I can see any of those guys not making the final roster. I think the most likely guy is Keon Johnson because he's young. He really improved. He's a grinder. Tyrese Martin showed that he could score big numbers. And Jalen Wilson is one of those Swiss Army knife guys. But that adds to the flexibility. Each one of those guys is being paid about $2 to $2.2 million. So, they can also be traded. They can be part of the deal. And I think that that's one of the reasons why they extended them, because they wanted the flexibility. And if you look at the roster math, you're coming down, 20 guys can go into training camp. And right about now, with the 3 invites that we know about and one that it's pretty certain we're going to get another one, you're at about 23, I guess about 23 now, because you lost Trendon Watford, you lost D'Angelo Russell, and you're going to lose Anthony Melton, probably to the Lakers. So, you're going to be 22, 23. There's going to have to be some change before they go into training camp on, I believe it'll be September 28th. And there could be, look, there could be moves today. The one name that I said last night that I thought people might want to pay attention to,
Cole Anthony.
Cole Anthony. And there's a number of reasons, some of which are not well known. Cole Anthony is New York born, New York raised, and a resident of New York. He is close to the ownership. He is a veteran point guard. When they don't have any others on the roster, they have 3 rookies. And he's only 25, and he would not be very expensive. And I think that you see him at Barclays Center during the summer because he's a Liberty fan, but you may see him at Barclays Center as a player. And I don't know that. Again, as I said, it's pretty closely held what's going on, but he's a name that I would keep an eye on.
My question to you then, you mentioned Cole Anthony there. How many roster spots are truly up for grabs on this team? It's for a team, Mr. Windrem, that isn't all that great, that doesn't have all that many superstars and isn't supposed to win 50-plus games. They have a very, very deep roster. Like, they have a lot of names filled up on the depth chart already. How many roster spots do you think are available? How many roster spots do you think are up for grabs?
Again, I don't know, but I think you have now, what is it, 7 guaranteed deals? I think that's right. And then you have Cam Thomas, the 4 non-guaranteed guys, and Tosan, who is under a G League
contract. Oh God.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of players there, and I think it's we're pretty close, barring change, and I'm not going to bar change. They're pretty close to where they're going to be, and a development is going to be critical, and it's not just the 5 rookies. I think, I think that both Derek Whitehead and Noah Clowney were younger than about a third of the players who were drafted last week. So they're still very young. And I think the development is going to be still an issue, of course, for the 4 non-guaranteed guys. I mean, they're still developing. I mean, they have a lot of challenges, quite obviously, and they're in the second year. They're in the second year of what appears to be a 3-year rebuild, and in that second year, is when you're going to see experimentation. I think. I mean, last year was a little different because they had a number of veterans, with big contract. Boyan never played, but Ben was making $40 million, and D'Lo was making, I think, 20 or close to it. So it's a very different situation now, and I think you'll see a lot of experimentation. I think you'll see a lot of the draft picks going back and forth to Long Island, and but I do think that assuming Nic stays, and I think he will, and assuming Cam gets his deal, which I think he will, I'll be very surprised if not. And you have Porter. I mean, there's where your core is. We still don't know who's going to be the point guard, and that's one of the reasons why I suggested Cole Anthony.
I think it would have to be Yegor, though. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but right now I think it would have to be Yegor.
You would think that, because you want to give him the opportunity, but they may slowly move him into position. I mean, that's their history. They slowly move people into the rotation, young players. I mean, like Cam Thomas, like Day'Ron, like Noah. They give them time in the G League. They give them time on the roster. But they don't throw them. They don't throw them right into the mix. It's possible they'll do that because they obviously took 5 of them. Not only that, but they acquired one of the 5 the day before.
Exactly.
So, and I think that they believed that they were going to get 5 picks for a while. I don't think that was a decision that was sudden. If you go back to watching the Scout docuseries, what you will see in that series is them talking about having 5 picks at that point it was 4 picks in a second, but having 5 picks at each level of the draft, and that said to me that maybe they were thinking about that early on, that was the plan. And they did talk to San Antonio, they did talk to Philly, they did talk to Charlotte in terms of trying to move up. Now I don't know who I believe from what I'm hearing secondhand that they liked Knuppel, who did it before. If you listen to the podcast last week from KSL in Seattle, Travis Hansen, who's a former NBA player with the Jazz, talked about draft night and talked about how they believed that as long as Knuppel was off the board, they had a good chance of being the Nets pick. And in fact, what they said was that indeed, when he went 4, they were very optimistic. And not long after Knuppel, was drafted, they got a text from somebody in the Nets front office, 2 words, which said, "He's ours." So I think, and again, I'm not sure of this, and I try to be very careful with that, but I think that they were interested in Knuppel, and I think they were, and I think they had long-term interest in Demon. There were. It was almost and this is a simplification. It's almost as if they went with quick thinking prospects rather than quick twitch prospects, the younger athletic guys. And they've said they're trying to model what happened with Indiana and the Thunder, and that's what they're built on. I mean, they have a star. In both cases, they were the young star who got in trades not long into their careers. But it was those deep rosters with quick thinking, players who work both ends of the court. And I think that's that's what's guiding them. I don't know if it's going to work. But those 5 guys, there's some interesting possibilities there.
Mr. Windrem, really appreciate the time. Really appreciate you hopping on with us here on the show. You got any final thoughts you want to share with everyone here before we let you go?
Sure. I think that the key thing here is basically you're going to see a lot of uncertainty through free agency in terms of what they're going to be doing all the way into the season. There are so many players who could be rotation players, and as I said before, you're going to see experiments on the court, but I also think you're going to see experiments with how they develop these guys. Do some of them go to Long Island? And you're going to have to be patient. There's just no way around that.
Definitely. Appreciate it, Mr. Windrem, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, he's Bob Windrem of Nets Daily. I am your host, Connor Long, signing off right here on the Brooklyn Boys Show. Make sure you smash the like button and hit subscribe. Follow Mr. Windrem on all social media at Nets Daily. Appreciate all of your support right here on the show. And as always, go Nets.